Hello, and welcome to this week's Magic in the City. And this week I am delighted to welcome Rosie Morgan. Welcome, Rosie.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Rosie is a medium, psychic, and a crystal healer who had her first psychic experience when she was only 6. 20 years later, while studying psychology, things started happening again. And after a few transformative moments, it became clear what her life path would be. So Rosie has archangels, angels, and a spirit team around her and is a much sought after medium. She has a calm and gentle nature, perfect for passing on messages from loved ones. Her energy, as we're about to find out, is infectious. She brings warmth and humor to whatever she does. She's a natural empath, passionate about people, and she would love to grow her business and explore working on other platforms so she can help and reach as many people as possible. So, welcome, Rosie. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. That's so lovely what you just said. What a lovely introduction. I just need a
Oh,
minute now.
you're welcome. So, here on Magic in the City, we are celebrating magic
Yeah.
and magic every day. The little things that happen, the coincidences.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm so thrilled that you're on this podcast. You're my first psychic that I've interviewed.
Oh.
And so, I feel like we can just let rip with the magic. We
Oh.
can just be as magical as possible.
I love it. Yes.
um, so I want to talk about your first magical moment, which was when you were 6 and you first became aware of spirits. So please, will you introduce us to Pom Pom?
Very happily. um, so yeah, when I was 6, my grandfather passed away, and the night before we went to go and visit him in hospital, I always, like, even though I was very young, I only 6, I just have really vivid memories of him. And I think I kind of know why now. That evening, we went to visit him, and then he passed. And then I was just going to bed, and I just remember very vividly hearing like a whirling sound and seeing like a big shadow just kind of whirl around my room. It's almost, like in Peter Pan, and it's like the shadow with Peter Pan. It was like that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, oh, I'm going shivery now. All of a sudden, my granddad was just on the end of my bed, and he was
Wow.
just like, "Hello, Rosie." It's just like, don't be scared. It's Pom Pom, and yeah, then we just had a little chat, and it was just very real, just like I'm seeing you right now. That's exactly how it was. And he was smiling, and it was like I didn't feel scared really. It was just like, okay. And then he was like, "Oh, we're gonna do lots of work together." So I was like, okay.
Wow.
And then yeah, the next day we were like helping to write like a letter like to grandma to be like sorry about Pom Pom. And then I could just kind of relay some things. I was like, "Oh well, he came last night and this is what he wanted to share." And then it was a bit like, what? What's going on? But that was my first introduction to spirit, and kind of always after that, I always just felt like someone was in. Sounds a bit strange, but I always just felt there were people around. I always explain it like it's, when someone you feel as someone's watching you or is just behind you, not in a sinister way, just there's someone there I know.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. And that was quite vivid when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I would walk in, like I couldn't like really go to old buildings. Like if I would get quite freaked out because of course I would see, I remember like going to like this really old building of a friend's house. We went in the attic and there's a woman in there. There's things like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just always feeling quite sensitive to it. So I think Pom Pom, my granddad, was like a big initiation for
Yeah.
that as well.
And so that night when it happened, was that the night he passed, or was it just before he passed that he came to
That
you
he'd passed by that.
at that moment?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And do you remember in that moment when you saw him sitting on the bed, do you remember thinking or realizing it wasn't it wasn't him physically. It was something different.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I'm going so shivery, so I know that we've got him here.
Hi, Pom Pom.
Hello. Oh. Yeah, I think because of just like the shadow and just like the sound it wasn't normal. It was I'm trying to find a way to describe the sound, because I honestly, I mean, all these years later, I can't even properly
Yeah.
compare it to anything. But it was this feeling of like, I know that this isn't like usual, this isn't normal, but at the same time it's so real, and I know
Yeah.
that it's all okay, and he's just here. And like, he was so warm in his nature, um coming to see me, that I was
Mm,
like, okay, you know, it was just seemed like, I think I knew it was a bit unusual, but at the same time it was like, it just seemed very comfortable.
yeah. That's lovely. And
Yeah.
before that happened, did you have any experiences with him in life that signaled that he had any connection to spirit, or that he recognized that in you? Was there anything that showed itself before that?
Do you know, not that I can think of. um I just have really vivid memories of him,
Mm,
which I don't necessarily have with others.
yeah,
But I think that's because of what was to come.
yeah,
So it's interesting, when I look back, I would say that the only real, like really like close memory that I can think of now is just kind of, is, which is quite funny now I think of it, because in my introduction, when I'm like reading for people, I say the best way to think of me is a telephone. So
yeah.
I'm like the network provider for letting spirit come through. So I'm a telephone. And there's actually there was I don't think I have it anymore, but there was a really sweet picture of, I think I must have been about 2 or 3, and it's us just sat on the sofa with like remote controls for the TV, but pretending that they're telephones.
Mm,
And so I was like, well, this is our communication, and I think it was in a funny way quite prophetic
yeah,
of
that's lovely.
what was
And
to come.
a little orb came across the
Oh, did
screen.
it?
It did, yeah, yeah,
That's beautiful. There
yeah.
you go.
So he's there.
Yeah.
So, what clairs do you have? What are your abilities?
Oh, wow. So the main one, well, they change.
Did they?
They change. I don't know when they change, if I'm honest. It depends who I'm reading for.
Yeah.
So quite often, I will feel how a person passed, or if there was something that was significant to that person, whether that was an ailment, or I think, you know, for example, I think someone had something to do with a finger, and I just said, "Is there something specific about a finger?" And they're like, "Yes." And it's just these things, you know. We are human, and I suppose that's a nice way in. I can, and another way. Excuse me, just my tissue. Excuse me. Is it's just like a thought that pops in to my
Mm,
head, basically. So I'll just be like, the closest thing I can say is that, you know, when you just suddenly remember something, you're like, oh yeah,
mm,
that's what it's like.
mm.
And the other day you saw, I was
Yeah.
tasting things, smelling. But I hear a lot as well, and feel. Sometimes I see things. Sometimes there might be a song, and sometimes it might be what we kind of call like instantaneous mediumship, where your attention will just suddenly be drawn to something in the room,
Mm,
and then that seems to have a significance. So it's very spontaneous. It's very, you know, and I feel like, you know, some psychics or mediums that you meet, they'll say, this is the way I work, and that's that. For me, I do agree with that to some point, but it's so dependent on who I've got in front of me, who wants to
yeah.
come through. Um, yeah, and quite often they can give me places. I mean, it's just they're so resourceful. They'll do anything they can to try and get a message across. Um, so yeah, it's a bit of everything, I would
Yeah.
say.
Okay, that's
If that
interesting.
answers it.
It
I know
does,
it might
yeah.
not be the most conventional answer, but we're not here for conventional
We're
today.
not. No, we're not. We're here for the magic. So your next magic moment
Yes.
happened when the next member of your spiritual team popped into your life, and your flatmate was doing Reiki,
Yeah.
and you started doing some automatic writing. Tell me about how this whole story
Yeah.
happened.
So this was from 6 to 26, so 20 years later,
Yeah.
I had moved back to London, and there was so much going on in my life at that time. I was in amongst just so many transitions,
Mm.
and it was a time where I was really stepping into my own self, I would say. And I was just started my psychology course, was kind of quite open to working with people on a one-to-one basis, doing some quite deep healing work. And so in a way, this was like an opening up. And so that by this point, it was literally, I just started properly my psychology, I just started the course. And there was just, I could just feel, like I've always been able to feel things around me, but there was a change. It was
Uh-huh.
much more like I've got someone here, and there were just loads of synchronicities happening at that time. And so with what happened here, I really needed a new job. I was already working one job that collapsed, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, I need money. I can't afford my rent or my course or anything if
Yeah.
this goes. And I was like, I need some help. And I was like, angels, or just whoever's out there, I need help. And I kind of just left it. And then I was just speaking to my flatmate, who's very spiritual. He was very spiritual, and it was a lovely introduction in a way, because we would just have these really deep chats.
Yeah.
And then I was just going to bed, and I was really, I would come from quite a tumultuous time in my life, to say the least. And I was really finding any practice I could to just, nurture well-being, and to just really commit to my life. And I was doing my gratitude lists, and I was, doing all of that and writing. And then all of a sudden, I just kind of, there was a shift in the energy, and I just wrote this sentence. I was going like, I am grateful for my food. I am grateful for, very,
Yeah.
very human level stuff.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there was just this change, and I just wrote, you are light and its reverberation is endless.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, and I said this to my flatmate, and he was like, Rosie, that's channeling. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And so he just told me more about what that meant. And I was like, right, okay. So I just wrote this sentence. And sorry, so he said that to me the next day, because what happened after that was crazy. So this was me just in bed writing my list, and then I had the you are lights, reverberation is endless. And then I just closed, like the book, and was like, right, I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah.
And then I went to sleep. And then when you can kind of have that in between stage of sleep, I just felt like I always say, like, when you watch a film and it's by Universal, and there's like the sun around the edge of the earth, and it goes, and it's like the sun, and it's just blinding. It was this massive light that just kind of woke me up, and it was I've never really experienced anything like it, and it was just like the light was just, the force of it was like massive, and they just were like, Rosie, I am Michael. I am Angel Michael.
Uh-huh.
and he's the angel of protection, and also for speech and communication and communicating with spirit and bringing them through. And yeah, he just said who he was. And again, it was like, we're going to do a lot of work together. It was the same as Pom Pom. And it was just this, your life is going to change from this moment. And this is the connection from now on. And then he said, you need to go to Covent Garden. You need to go to a shop in Covent Garden. And that's all he gave me. He just said, just go to the shop, trust me, you'll know why you needed to go. And that was it. I was just
Wow.
there like, what's going on?
And
I
you're
was
and you're there with your eyes open at this point.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
in complete shivers, and it was just like this massive almighty presence. I mean,
Mm.
just to the point where it was like almost felt quite biblical in a way. That was
Yeah.
like, you just, how do you explain this to anyone? And then I think, yeah, then my flatmate the next day was like, Rosie, like, what's going on? And then I just said, oh, I just had this experience last night. And they were so open, and they knew about this stuff. And I just said, you don't happen to know about like this, like a shop in Covent Garden that might be to do with like angels or anything? And they were like, I laughed, and they were like, I'll take you, let's go. Yeah, there's loads. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And it was funny because, of course, you know, I said I really needed a job. Like, that I cannot tell you. I mean, it was like that there were pence left. I was
Mhm.
like, this needs to be
Yeah.
sorted. I was like, I'm going to take any help I can get. And so we just walked to Covent Garden, and I was like, right, Michael, let's find it. Where are we going? And I walked to in front of this shop, and it was a crystal psychic readings shop hiring for a
Yeah.
sales assistant.
Amazing.
And so I just wander in, and I was like, sounds a bit crazy, but I've just been sent here and I've just seen your advert in the window. Are you taking anyone? And they were like, we've just filled the position. We've just filled it. And I was like, no, but let's take, do you have a CV? I magically had one on me. It was, I was like, yeah, off we go. And gave it to them, and they were like, look, we'll be in touch if anything comes up. So I go home, and I was like, okay, well, we're just going to have to trust. Like, they sent me here for a reason. So then top about home being like, oh my God, I really hope they call. And then I was just finishing up my other job, and it was just, oh my God, I came out and finished it, and I was like, I actually, I have to have a job. I was like, Michael, I was like, you came to me, you said this, like, please, I really do need your help now. I can't continue. Like, I can't say anymore how much I need this.
Yeah.
And kind of was a bit like, whoof, and kind of just went for, I think I just went for a shower or something. And in that time, I think it was like 20 minutes, I had a call and message from the shop, from the psychic shop, being like, Rosie, can you come in for a trial shift tomorrow?
Wow.
And then that was it, you know, and then I was there and just had an absolute initiation into learning about spirituality and psychics. And then I think it was really when I was at that shop and I was working there, I was doing my course as well, that things just started to happen that were, it was just a crazy time, a beautiful time, but crazy time. And I just learned so much. And I just remember one of the people that I worked with, they were like, oh, maybe there was a reason that you were coming here, as my
100%.
psychic and mediumship was really starting to take precedence, basically, and just be an everyday part of my life. It was just every day. Yeah, and I just learned so much. So it was just like that guiding of Michael just being like, you're meant to be here. And I would never have thought about applying to work in a place like that. It
Yeah.
was so different to what I had originally been doing. And it was like, no, you're here.
Yeah, and that's amazing. There was an instance while you were working in the shop where you heard a name and you went to a psychic fair, and that brought a whole other
Yeah.
coincidence in, which almost the story is great, which I'll speak to you about
Yeah.
in a second, but it almost cements the whole, you being there. It was like a confirmation that everything is you're where you should be.
Yeah. And it was just like with, just kind of trusting that in that stage of just, I think this happens a lot with people in their spiritual awakening or with faith or in this journey of life, where it's like, you're brought to a stage where it's like, you really need some assistance, and it's, it's getting, you're cutting it right down to the wire, and then all of a sudden they come in, and
Hmm.
it's just like, and it's in a way that you never would have expected. Well, I wouldn't have anyway. That's quite not that way.
Yeah,
um, so yeah, it's just that alignment, and when we allow them in, what they do and what comes from you as well, and that co-creation, that collaboration with them, with spirit, angels, whatever you like to think of.
mm,
Yeah, it can really set the path.
yeah, yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
And there were a few times when you heard a name and then you met them, and yeah,
yeah,
amazing things happened.
yeah,
It's
yeah. And
fantastic.
that was kind of like outside of the shop as well. So I was studying full time, had 3 placements, was working 2 jobs. I mean, it was in a crazy time.
Mm.
um, and so I was just having this, just meeting so many different people. And quite often it would be where I would be on the bus, or I would be anywhere, just walking down the road. And I would just feel spirit come in. I'd be like, "Who are you? What's this?" And they would say maybe their name or the name of someone, and I would be like, "I don't know who this is, but I'm here to listen. Let's just go." And they would just tell me loads about them. And I remember being told that I didn't know I was going to have a new new client to see that day. But I turned up and they said, "Rosie, there's a new person for you to see today." And of course I read their notes, and everything that was in their notes I had been told before.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I just knew people's names before I met them.
Mm.
I remember like one instance where I just was told a name, and then I was just out with my friends actually. And I'm always careful when I do this, by the way, because I've always liked to be ethical. But we basically, we were out. We were just having like a few drinks, and then there was just the table next to us. You get chatting, off you go. And we had a beautiful conversation, and then I asked, "Well, what's your name?" And of course, it's the name that they sent. And then, I said, "Are you happy? I've got something coming through. Would you mind?" And they were like, "Yes." And so I always do it if there's permission. That's my thing. I'm quite keen on that. But and it's just how spirit at that time, it was like just building that trust, building that faith of like, we're here. But that, if I can go into the story, with the shop, is that I started at the psychic shop for a couple of months, and then I heard about this kind of spiritual festival, and something just told me to go. And they said, "Oh, there'll be someone there, a psychic there, that you need to go and see, and their name begins with this letter." We're all on data protection and
I
all of
know.
that. I'm so gorgeous on that. The
Yeah,
psychology training too.
yeah.
So I was just like, right, I've got this letter. Okay, let's have a look. Turned up, got handed a book of who you could choose to read. Sure as day. Open up, that person is there. I go and sit down, and they say, I didn't think I'd even sat down at this point, and they were like, "You're psychic," and they just said, "This is what you're going to do. This is it.
Yeah.
They want you to do this right now. Off you go." And I was like, "I'm doing my course. I've got this." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "No, this is your path forward." And then just for a bit more magic, at the end I was like, "Oh, I, really connected to the psychic." And I said, "Love to connect with you. Is there a way I can find you?" And they were like, "You'll see me again. Don't ask me how, but you will see me again." And I was like, "Fine, I trust that. You just do." And so back at the psychic shop, and then one of my colleagues says, we're recruiting for a psychic, Rosie, have a, read through of, let's see what you think. So I was like, sure. And then, of course, the person that read for me at that festival had applied and then joined, and then that was it. And then I just saw them all the time.
Wow.
And yeah,
Wow. That's a great
that was it.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there you are. You've got Pom Pom and Michael
Yes,
as part of your team amongst many others. Um, I wanted to talk about, spend some more time talking about your connection with Pom Pom and a couple of
sure.
things that happened. So there are two stories I know about. There's one that's
Yes.
regarding a notebook, and then there's one regarding Canada. And I would love for you to tell me those two stories.
Yes. Oh, I love telling these, so thank you for letting me and creating the space to do so. So I've actually got the items with me here. So I'll start with the book. I think that's a
Okay.
nice one to do.
Yeah.
I was speaking to a relative, and yeah, so this was all at the same time. So when I was 26, all this time where all of the things were happening in my life, it was like this induction of spirit. And Pom Pom was really then coming in strong for things in my life, and would be a guide. And I was speaking to a relative on the phone, and they were clearing out. It was 20 years later, but they were clearing out kind of like his workspace, like his shed. We'd like finally got round to doing it. And I was just chatting, and I just all of a sudden felt Pom Pom come in, and I just said, if there's a blue book or like a journal or a diary in the office on like, it might be hidden, but I feel like it's like on the desk or something, if you find it, that would be amazing. He wants me to have it.
Hmm.
But if you don't find it, that's fine. But it's just like, if it's there, that would be amazing. So they're like, by this point, this relative was a bit more open to some of the stuff, because they were like, it's the crazy stuff was happening at this time. They were like, fine. And then about 5 minutes later, I received a message, and then when I just hung up the phone after like them going to look for this item, I had this song by Ariana Grande, and it's like Greedy. So it's a very groovy tune. And I was like, why is this song in my head? And I was like, Greedy. I was just loving it. And then I get a message with a photo of this blue book here, which again, incidentally, is the colour of Michael blue as
Yep.
well. And it was the memoirs my Pom Pom was writing as he was passing away to distract him from the pain of his cancer treatment.
Wow.
And he called the book Greedy for Life. So it was just him trying in all of his way just to do it. And it's amazing, it's his handwriting. It's it's a really special thing that I have of his, and just that kind of really physical manifestation for me of trust. Like,
Yeah.
that book for me is trust.
Yeah.
And that, people from beyond, people, the spirit, loved ones, they will come in if it's time, if it aligns, they will. And it's just full of it, and just some of what he's written, and it's his handwriting, and it was like,
Yeah.
a very in between time for him, because he knew he was dying. So
Yeah.
it's almost like that energy that was around him. So it was a really special thing to have,
Mm.
as well. So that was quite a big cementing factor to people that I knew that were a little bit skeptical,
Yeah.
completely understandably so. That's human nature, right? But they were like, how would you have known that? Because this has been lying there for 20 years. We didn't even know about this. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't even know. And then it actually opened up a massive door to knowing more about Pom Pom. Yeah, so that was an amazing thing.
And was there anything in the book that was that helped you spiritually? Had he written anything, like any guidelines or anything that was helpful to you at the time?
I think it was just that, literally just the title of being greedy for life.
Yeah,
It's just, I even just look back on it, and it's just like, I just suppose like his dedication completing this. And bless him, he
yeah,
didn't complete
yeah.
it. But
What do you
it's
think the title means? What does it mean to you, 3D for Life?
because I think, his life was cut shorter. He literally had months.
Mm.
And I think for me, it's that amazing thing that can come from when we know that time is such a precious thing, we then really value it. And
Mm.
it's just like seizing the moment and just taking everything. And from what I read about him, from what I know him to be, like, that's how he was.
Yeah,
And I think for me at the time, there was so much going on in my life and navigating some pretty horrendous situations. And I actually think his sentence and guidance of greedy for life, and that expansion and moving forward and breaking free from things, was just that sentiment of, this is your fresh start, Rosie, take it, and I'm
yeah,
with you.
yeah,
And I think that's what that meant. That's what that meant for me. But
yeah,
also, I laugh as well because, I always say he literally is a guide for me in every sense of the way. And I wanted to tell you this as well. Something else that happened, two things, and I was going to message you, but then I got distracted. So there we go. But we can talk about it now. We can do it now.
yeah.
But I know, yay, magic. So my pom pom, he was a flight navigator, and he like worked in the RAF and then also for British Airways as well. So he literally is my navigator in
Yeah,
life. And it was so funny. And he trained like in Canada to get his license and all of this. And then there's a big connection with the States. And then as well, I think at the time I was like obsessed with Las Vegas. I'm the biggest Elvis fan ever. That's a little fun fact about me. And I remember when I opened this blue book, and and him flying, and I think it was like, I opened it and it had Las Vegas, and then it was like California. It was like these places that were amazing. And then after we had the chat the other day, I was on the tube to a mediumship event. I literally walked around. Never seen this before. This vehicle before. It's just at the end of the road, and it was a massive compass on the side of a van.
uh-huh.
And then I was also just sat on the tube on the way to the event, and something was just, I just looked down. There's a newspaper, British Airways, California.
Oh,
So it's just in that, and that was in the space of half an hour. Just them sending those signs.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was quite a big thing as well. So I guess
Do
that
you,
lends me. Oh, sorry, you
oh,
go ahead,
sorry, I just want to ask a quick
please.
question at this point. Do you find that, I don't know how often you've talked about these things that have happened
Yeah,
with Pom Pom, like publicly, or how
yeah.
often you share it. But when you do share it, do you find that you get a signal from him,
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
so that's so beautiful. Sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
it's lovely, and I that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh God, you're pleased with what I said then.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. But brought me on to the other story that,
Yes,
that you were
the other
talking about
story.
as well. So as I was on, after learning about this blue book, and I said, right, well, I've got to come and get this book. I just remember I would, so how we were talking about earlier, I would do that inspired writing. Quite often I would be told things and I'd have to unwrite it. So one of the things was buttons and cufflinks
Yeah.
and totem pole.
Uh-huh.
And at this point, I was like, Spirit, do you know what? I fully trust you, because this stuff is so random, but it happens. So
Yeah.
fine. I'll write it. Let's see. So I'm en route to get this book. And I turn up and learn more about Pom Pom, I didn't know all of this at this stage about him, and then I was just asking, and they were like, "Oh well, yeah, he went to Canada, and that's where he trained." And I was just like, "Okay, this sounds strange, but I've just been told about this totem pole and these buttons or these like cufflinks." So we were going through his stuff and like getting this book, and of course, in this cupboard, there were in a little pouch were the buttons of his, and then also a picture of this totem pole
Wow.
um, from Canada,
Yeah.
from when he was there. And actually, then as I learned more about this totem pole and learned more, that's a very spiritual thing in itself. But as I learned more about it, someone said, "Oh no, that this is really important because there's a park that he would love to go to, and I think he went there before he passed. A massive totem pole. So
Oh, wow.
off we
God.
go
Yeah.
to that totem pole."
Yeah.
And he was like, and I said, "Oh, you've told me to come here then, totem pole. So you told me. I wrote it down." And I toddle over there to this totem pole, and I just said to him, "Right, I'm here. What do you have for me? Let me know you're around." And someone took a picture of me in front of the totem pole, and when I looked back on it, there was a cloud with the initial J, and
Yeah.
my pom pom's name was John. So there's J, and then there was also a plane in the photo as well. So it was just like him being like, "I'm absolutely with you" at that
Yeah.
time. And I think for him, when I reflect on that time and what that message meant for me, I was breaking away from a lot and really coming into my own.
Yeah.
And I would say really building my life up again,
Mm.
and with so much help from spirit. I always say the spirit saved my life, but it's really I just think of like the height of the totem pole, the flying, and
Yeah.
everything that he represented, and the messages I would get from him. That's what it meant for me, and that
Yeah.
expansion.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite a story from Pom
It's
Pom Pom's a
quite,
big
yeah,
feature.
completely magical. The fact that it was a totem pole of all things, again, like you
Yeah,
say, very spiritual. So it showed that he also had some spiritual connection in life.
yeah,
What animals were on was there any significance with the animals that were on the totem pole?
yeah. It was. I think one of them was an eagle.
Mm.
Um, and this was quite funny as well. Just another thing. I remember at the time, again, you're finding so much about me. I love ABBA. I mean, if you don't love ABBA, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, love Abba.
I love this. And I just remember going to ABBA Voyage. And this was all the time of, I think I'd just gone to the totem pole and seen this eagle, and then I was just seeing eagles everywhere. And I don't know if you know this song by ABBA that is called Eagle. So lots of people don't know it, and it's an absolutely amazing
How does
song.
it go? It rings a bell.
Flying fly,
Mm. Yes, like that. Yeah, yeah.
there you go. There you go. Oh, it's so funny. And we went to ABBA Voyage, and then of course there was this. I just felt Pom Pom there with me, and of
Oh,
course they sang Eagle, and it was all this animation of this compass and this like
oh,
spiritual quest and all of this, and I was like, I'm actually done.
wow.
um, so yeah, I think that was like an eagle, and actually I see eagles quite a lot
Yeah,
around. And I just say it's just these symbols as well.
yeah. And you've
That
got
you,
the wings of like the curvy thingy of British Airways, like a
yeah,
wing, and also the
yeah,
RAF wings on the buttons, and
yeah.
it's just wings everywhere,
It was
isn't
always
it?
going to be something to do with angels. And of course, the significance of Michael as well.
Yeah.
That Michael was my great uncle, so Pom Pom's brother. So it's that as well.
Oh. That's lovely.
It's little
That's
connections.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so lovely, and you have like Michael and Pom Pom to
Mhm.
ask for help whenever you
Yeah,
need it, and that must be it must be such a comfort, but also such a strong steer in life, to have
definitely.
you know two presents that you completely trust.
Yeah.
And I think it works both ways with spirit. We have to show that we are completely trusting, that whatever we get is going to be can by us the right way, and that we believe
Absolutely.
it, and that we are, like you said, a good receptacle, a good receiver
Yeah.
for the messages
Yeah.
when they come through. Having this gift is, I mean, it's incredible, but it also comes with the responsibility and, like you say, the ethics and the boundaries and all of that that you
Yeah.
have to, I mean, to keep yourself safe as
Yeah.
well. Very, very important. What is it that how do you manage it kind of day to day? Because I know spirit can be very persistent and like, Rosie, I've got, trying to tell you this is coming through. How do you like cope with you know, all of
Yeah.
that?
That's a very good question. And I still, if I'm honest, I still feel like I'm navigating that even now.
Yeah.
And it is something that you just kind of, this is my experience, right? For other people might be different. But
Mm.
for me, it was just kind of, yeah, having a moment of acceptance and just knowing that this is part of the deal, this is part of the package.
Yeah.
That's it. And so it's like, okay, fine. But I suppose for me to manage it, I always say to spirit, if you're coming forward, only come forward with things that are in the highest light, in the highest love, in the highest good. That's really going to help people and have it to be aligned people and people that really need it, really need it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually, like, what advice you have for someone that's grieving and that wants to connect with a loved one. I mean, how does that? I mean, is it always like, would they always get an answer? How does that happen usually?
Yes. In my experience, I believe that in the people I've met in my readings or through my work or just meeting people, having this kind of discussion, it can happen very instantaneously and very quickly. My perspective on it is to
Yeah.
ask for a sign,
Yeah.
and whether that can be a butterfly or a feather, or whether it's like, just for me when it was a totem pole, you
Mm.
know, I've had some, pretty amazing experiences with people, even during readings
Yeah.
where we'll be talking about something and they said, oh, I just want them to know that this is going on in my life. And something out of nowhere will just be like a sign. I think it was someone was moving, and it was it was from a house, and it was very important to that person. They were quite torn up about it, and it was like, I just want a sign to, like, just let me know I'm doing the right thing. Well, of course, a massive moving truck drives past
Haha.
during the reading,
Wow.
and it's like, and it's the minute that we ask and allow it to come forward.
Yeah.
And what I would say to people as well is that sometimes we have that magic where it comes straight away.
Mm.
Sometimes it might come a bit later, and it's trusting that it comes at that right time.
Yeah.
But for me, I always talk about, of course, allowing it, but also just not, how to phrase it, like, things might come in a really unexpected way, so
Yeah.
expect the unexpected,
Exactly.
really. And
Yeah.
I think it was even yesterday with someone, it was a really old saying that I used, and I'd never say this, and they were like, oh my gosh, that's what they would say, this is really important to something in my life right now.
Mhm.
And it's just that it's kind of knowing that you put out that request to spirit, and it's trusting and knowing it will come, but it
Yeah.
might not come in that timing that I expect. And that can be, especially when you're grieving, that can be really, really hard. And I have
Yeah.
so much compassion
Yeah.
and holding for people. You know, we've all experienced it in some way, but it is just, I've found that when the answers come, or when the sign comes, it's at just such an amazing perfect aligned time,
Yeah.
and it almost leaves you speechless, and you're like, well, there we are, what
Yeah.
else can I possibly, that can't be anything but that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's so I think it's such a comfort for people, if they are not necessarily very spiritual or whatever, to
Yeah,
kind of, to understand that their loved ones are still around and
absolutely.
still communicating, and it's just a different, however you view life after death or spirituality or whatever, to kind of get the sensation that you're getting these signs, and that you're, the connection is still there in your
Always.
life. Yeah.
Always. And quite often, I've had it with quite a few people that I know that have passed. I think of, one person for me really comes to mind, and they, like, their name is on a car
Mm.
everywhere I go.
Mhm.
Every day I will see that name.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
um, so I feel it's, yeah, just this huge thing of trust, and that it is there. They are there. And as well, it might not come in almost like a biblical way or a massive way. It might actually just, a song might come on that was important to them, or it might just be, you hear a word of someone and be like, oh, that really uplifted me. And it's just these things that are sent to people to just be like, that love is beyond. And I think that's just what I really want to reiterate, really, is that sometimes a connection with someone that's passed actually grows stronger than
Mm.
when they were here with us. And actually, if I think of Pom Pom and another couple of people, just the example I gave just now, a couple of people in my life, the bond I have with them now wouldn't have happened, if they were still here. And
Yeah.
of course, it's a very tragic way, of course, but
Yeah.
there is, for me, there's something really quite beautiful in that. And
Mm.
it's that strength of the bridge and the connection and of spirit for them to be like, we can come in and support you. We
Yeah.
can bring that magic, that love, that light, that holding support, healing, everything you need. It can be sent.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. What advice would you give to somebody who has, I don't know, either interested in psychic ability, or has some psychic ability, and, like you were when you were 26 and not quite sure,
Mm,
what was going on? What would your advice be for where somebody could go to get some guidance and some direction?
yeah. So I would say look out for communities that
Mm.
you can join. Quite often it's like going to a psychic,
Mhm.
maybe like meeting them. That was something that was really helpful for me.
Yeah.
Having an open conversation with someone that you really trust about this. And also, I can also say another story
Go
as
ahead.
well about this. I'm just thinking as well, and for me, my advice for it, actually, honestly, is if it's coming through and it's happening, just trust it. Just trust it. And just connect with others. This is what was happening for me. So at this time, I'd found the totem pole and the blue book, and also gone to see that psychic that was connected to the shop I was working at. they said, you need to go to a circle. So I was like, fine, I'll go to a circle. And I had a relative that had come through. They from generations back. I wouldn't have met them. I didn't know much about them. And they have a very unique name,
Yeah.
first and second name. Very, like, I don't know anyone else who has this name, or even one. It's really unique. So I was like, okay, and I said, right, I just feel that I need to go to this circle, which is in Notting Hill. It's an amazing space. And when I went there, when I went to the space, I didn't know what to expect, and I was like, right. Was in the circle, was channeling all this stuff, and they said, oh, you need to meet this person. And I went, what? So it turns out that one of the leaders of this place, of this church, had the exact same name, exact same spelling of a relative of mine that passed.
Wow. Wow. That's
So
crazy.
it's like it's that. So that in that story, in that message, for people listening, that are intrigued or wanting to learn more, the biggest thing is to just talk about it with someone that you trust, and trust spirit that they will guide you to the answers. And I would think about, whether it also may be a creative medium as well, whether that's writing or drawing. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, you don't have to be good at it, right? It's not
Yeah.
like it's more just like sometimes it can come through that way. But I
Yeah.
think for me, it was the importance of finding community
Yeah.
and people that I could trust. I couldn't go to my psychology people and say, oh, by the way, that wasn't
Yeah.
really an option. So for me to kind of find that community, find people that were open to it, that would be my advice. Just find your tribe. It's just the same with
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
do. But for this, that would be my advice, and to allow space to listen and connect.
Yeah. Yeah. And for anybody interested in connecting with you, you're running monthly angel circles,
Yes.
which the first one was last night, which I
Yeah.
came to, which was fantastic. So they're online and they're an hour. And last night we had a fantastic guided meditation. Um, and I can't remember a lot about it because it was so soothing I fell asleep. But
Oh, there we go. That's what the angels wanted to you in that moment. Rest.
I'll put the links below so that you can find ways to connect with Rosie. I've got a few more questions before we wrap up. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask about spirit, and I think I know the answer already, but I was wondering, like, is spirit has a sense of humor, but does spirit tell you off and sort of warn you and that kind of thing? Is it quite a like a human-ish relationship, or is it sort of more business-like?
That is such a good question. I definitely agree that there's a lot of humour.
Yeah,
And I think this helps, especially if you've got someone in spirit who was quite funny as
yeah,
well. So for me, that's pom pom. And I would say, there's that saying, I've heard this as well, just in churches before, that God has a sense of humour. So I would say, like, there can be some moments where it's very human, and for me, that's when that's when it might be spirit coming through. So a loved one or someone we know that's passed.
yeah.
They it's so interesting. I'm really thinking about this question, so sorry for taking a bit of time
No, it's
to
okay.
answer, because
I love it.
I'm trying to think, oh, well, sometimes if it's spirit coming through, the dynamic can be like this. If it's an angel, if it's this, da 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 da. Yes. My answer is, I would absolutely say spirit have warned me. I had a couple of near-death experiences, and spirit warned me about that. And even recently, I had something happen where I really had to look after myself. I had to just really protect myself. And they came to me in a dream a couple of nights before, just kind of prompt me. That's something, we might just have to be a bit wary. They're just
Mm,
looking out. So, you know, that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this. I don't mean this to sound egoic at all. That's not my vibe at all. I don't want it. But sometimes I tell them off.
I've
you
seen.
know, you know. But I think that's part of being human. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, Pom Pom, are you for real? I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
having this. I get my
Yeah.
finger out and I'm like, no. Or, you know, and I think sometimes it's kind of like, you know, sometimes, and I suppose for me as well, like, having the experiences, yeah, of course, with spirit and people that have passed, it's a different vibration. But I think, you know, I suppose for me looking back, you know, my faith was always, I always believe in God or, you know, angels, something out there.
Yeah.
But I think in a way I kind of initially came from this perspective of slightly fear-based, I would say, that it can have, and it's like, oh, and really respectful. And of course there's that sacred part that we have.
Yeah.
But I think as well there's a lot around, like, I think when we can feel like I need to really respect it, and having kind of like those experiences like with Michael coming through and it being quite almighty,
Yeah.
that can be quite an interesting thing as well in to perceive. And I think sometimes we can be like almost like a pleading, which, you know, we, you know, let's be honest, life can bring us to those points.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes in having that relationship with spirit, with the universe, this, to kind of integrate it, to make it more human, and to see that that bridge between spirit and human isn't really that far away, that's when it can really kind of thrive and come about. But yeah, I think I would, yeah, say sometimes I do to have a little word with them.
Yeah.
But I think as you're, I do think a lot of it can be quite human,
Yeah.
because I think especially when we move into this realms, we kind of sometimes forget that we are. And it's you know, I sometimes joke and say, well, I spend more time with people that aren't here. You know, I
Yeah.
see more past people than I do people in a day sometimes. You know, especially if I'm at an event, you know, it might be 30 people, you know, and
Yeah.
it's this thing. But I think it's just, I always say to people, it's just, there is something, someone, whatever way you like to view it, someone's looking out for you. And
Yeah.
it's just about your awareness to that, and
Yeah.
willingness as well. Willingness is a really big thing. And I
Yeah.
understand that, you know, there's been places in my life where, you know, I've just thought, you know, what next? You know, but, and it brings us to these points, and there can almost be a bit of a resistance to, well, do you know what, why should I, that, you know, and all of this. But actually, the minute, I've always found this with people from so many walks of life, that the minute we just open up and just even think that there might be something, it will happen and it will come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, developing that kind of human conversation. I think it's got more human. I mean,
Yeah.
I suppose you've seen me on psychic nights and things like that, and it can be very human.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it can change. But yeah, it's just opening up that conversation.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting. I'd just like to ask you about what's your how do you perceive realms? Like, so how do you perceive our, you know, us as humans, spirit realm, angelic realm? You know, what's your, in your mind's eye, how does that look to you? Is it like, is it parallel universes?
Mm.
Is it different dimensions? Is it like is it different energetical fields all around each other, intertwined? That's not an easy question. Sorry.
Not at all. No, it's very interesting. And I'm just really kind of tuning into how I perceive it.
Hmm. We can come back to that in a minute
No,
if you like.
I
If you want
mean,
some time.
I guess the way, my view of it, if I tap into it, I see it as I when I was first starting out, and when things were crazy, like I couldn't go to the supermarket, I couldn't go on the
Yeah.
tube. It was just like, so for me, I always found that it's like it's something descending down upon us.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like it's actually, this is my experience, and I guess maybe my journey with it, that it's more of a feeling. So where it used to be like this almighty thing or just spirit coming in, like, actually, as I connected more, it seemed more like you're in this space and spirit come forward and join you this way. So instead of it being like them descending down on us, it's more like they're coming side by side. And it just feels like, for me, as I'm feeling Pom Pom or Spirit right now, it's just like, it is quite, it's shivery, but it's quite human and it's quite tangible.
Yeah.
When it's an angel or a guide, I feel it in my heart that there's just an upliftment, there's an expansion that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely feel that there are other realms, and especially when I'm, doing the meditations or, holding the spaces, I might talk about going up to something, but I always feel it's like, that for me, what's been helpful to stay grounded in it is feel this side by side view. If that
So
makes sense.
a bit. I mean, yes. I'm understanding it as the angelic realm comes more into the heart space,
Yeah.
and that other spirits, pom pom,
Yeah.
etc., they come and they're in your energetic field, but they're kind of next to your energetic field. They're not in your energetic field necessarily. Or maybe they are, but they're kind of
They are. It's just I think it's so hard to explain. So it's just kind of like the feeling of them
yeah,
is like, when you're standing next to someone on the tube, if that
yeah,
makes sense. It's like, oh, I've just got someone here with me. He's popped in.
yeah. So you feel their energetic, you feel their energy.
Yeah. So
So your body picks up on almost like the sensations of knowing
yeah.
you're next to you, whereas
So
angels
felt yeah.
felt here.
Yeah, and it's more spirit. I feel a bit closer. Angels are close, but their kind of energy is wider, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
mm,
But what I say to people, well, this is my experience of it and my learning, is that we're all connected as one.
yeah.
It's just we might just show ourselves in a different way. So in a
Mm,
way, spirit can also be guardian angels. It's this kind of thing. This is my view of it,
yeah.
my interpretation. But yeah, it's a different frequency. It's a different level. That's the
Yeah.
way I can probably best describe it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And what for somebody that may have experienced stuff and they're not quite sure, what are some of the things that you would say would be a sign from the angels? Things like finding a feather or
Mm-hmm.
having angel numbers. What are the things that people can look for that are good indications that angels are around them?
So I've just thought of another story, if you don't
Oh
mind.
God, no, go ahead.
Sorry, we're going to be here all day. The angels are speaking. Yeah, my view for that for angels, again, it can be something quite personal. After I had Michael come forward to me, I remember he has a sword. Michael has a sword, and that's it's from the Bible and him defeating the devil and all of this, and also just protecting everyone, protecting the angels, and spirit essentially. And so he is known as the strength, like a warrior, the protector. And so his symbol is a sword. And I remember I think I was just maybe doing some writing, and I had a knock at the door. No one else was home. It was just me. I just had a knock at the door. Went downstairs. Nothing was there. This happened 3 times, and it was so vivid. And I went down the 3rd time, and I was like, "What is going on? No one's at the door, but someone keeps knocking." And then Michael came in and said, "Oh, Rosie, it's me." And he says, "Walk to the top of the stairs and look down." So I did that, and I've got a picture of it somewhere, but it was just on the floor from the door. The light made the brightest white sword on the floor, and it was just like through the glass, and it's like even like the shape of the glass, like I showed it to my flatmates and I said, "Have you seen this?" They're like, "We have never seen this before. Like, this is crazy." So it can be quite a big sign like that. There's the thing about white feathers. There was even, I remember just the other day, I connected to Archangel Azrael, and I sat down in a cafe and I looked down and there was a black feather. And Archangel Azrael is the angel of death, and he has black feathers, and there was just one there. It's things like this. It can be angel numbers. They all have different meanings. But I also, again, I say to people, you can Google it, you can hear other people's interpretations of it, but that might mean something specific to you.
Yeah.
But I always like to say to people that with angels, it can be with birds, butterflies, anything with wings. Honestly, anything with wings, it will be there. But again, I feel it can be something that's quite personal for you. If there's something specifically that you're asking the angels for, or like a prayer, they might even just send something like that, just there. It can be quite a personal thing to you, but I would just say to, like, maybe just test it out, just be like, right, angel, I would love to see this, I'm gonna ask about this, and for mine, show me a totem pole, show me
Yeah.
a sign. And
Yeah.
I would just say, like, just be open to what that might be.
Yeah. When you were talking about seeing that sword in the light
Mm.
behind you, it went really bright.
Did it?
Yeah.
There you go.
I was like, wow.
Michael, me and Michael.
I do think it's funny, I'm been meeting people in this space now for a few years,
Yeah.
and hearing whose archangels are whose kind of thing. So
Yeah.
you have Michael, but also I know lots of other people that have Michael or
Yeah.
Gabriel or whatever,
Yeah.
and these are very, very busy angels, aren't they? They're
Oh yeah.
like they're all
They're on
over the
it.
place. Yeah. I don't know how they do it, but I do think it's interesting. And, at any one time, we may have a bunch of archangels for Raphael for healing, and, Michael for protection,
Yeah. Beautiful.
whatever it is that we need, they'll be here.
Yeah.
But,
And
your connection is Michael, very, very strongly for now.
yeah,
You never know, it
for
might
now,
change.
I literally was about to
Yeah.
say, we get different angels for different times in our life. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's they come in, and there's so many angels. There's so many.
Yeah.
And also to say, quite often angels can come in the form of people as well. Quite often, I
Hmm.
think I've had it a couple of times where I was talking to someone, and they were like, "Who are you talking to? There's no one there." And I was like, "What?" And it's actually that quite often they can come to themselves and they just disappear. They come,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
they come in that form because it's what is most accessible to you.
Mm.
Because if they were to show themselves in robes and feathered wings, you would be
Yeah.
like, "What?"
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes that's what I always say to people, is that sometimes we expect it to be this massive thing, and quite often it can just be that a little one, but it has the most profound meaning for you.
Yeah. I mean, when I've seen angels, I see them, very, with the wings and
Yeah,
colors of whatever whatever angel it is, different
yeah,
colors. How do you see Michael? Does Michael appear to you, very angelic with the wings, or is it a presence but without a face, or how's what visual do you tend to get with Michael?
I always get a really strong blue light,
Right. Yeah.
that like really strong blue, and also like quite a bright white light as well, kind of together.
Yeah.
For me, the when I know it's him, it's the magnificence of the feeling, the
Wow.
presence of just
Yeah.
like, I'm like a general. I don't know, like this kind of thing, this like protector, like this kind of energy.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I think I speak to a lot of people about visual, and some people are, oh, well, if you can see it, like that's the thing. And I feel when I think about it more, um, as your journey and or spiritual journey develops, I've actually found I don't know if you know Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer. He has that amazing book, and I think it's like, there's that saying, seeing is believing, but he changes it to believing is seeing.
Yeah.
And I think some people think, well, I've got to see it. I've got to see it, which is, completely understandable. But for me, as I've gone on, there's been different ways and senses of connecting. And I feel like that when you like connect, sometimes it might be like, well, I'm not seeing them anymore. Oh my gosh, I've not got this. They've gone. It's like, no, you're actually at a stage where you are housing it even more. It's so within you,
Yeah.
because they're a part of you.
Yeah.
And it's, so that's what I say to people as well. And so sometimes it can be a visual, sometimes it can be that, but it's also just saying to other people, is opening up to other intelligence, other feedback that can be there as well.
Yeah. How much has this changed you? Because hearing you talk about Michael and, the magnificence of Michael,
Yeah.
having that influence, or maybe influence is the wrong word, but that input, can't think of a better word, in your
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
um, it's gotta change you by some degree, because it's like, it's powerful.
Yeah.
You can't be the Rosie that you used to be, in my
No.
mind.
God,
Is that
look back at that and think, woo. Yeah, it's so interesting, just talking about birth charts, and
yeah,
obviously my connection with you, and there's so, my midheaven's in Scorpio, so there's so much, and I'm like, there's so much, like Pluto is all in, like everything's in Scorpio a lot
yeah,
for me, and so I think, yeah, it's the transformation, and I'll say to people quite openly, yeah, spirit saved my life many,
yeah,
many times, and no, you can't. I do remember. It's interesting you say, when I saw that psychic, they said this is the point of no return for you,
did they? Wow.
and I knew exactly. I mean, there were so many meanings for me with that. If I showed you what my life looked like, even at 26,
Yeah,
yeah, I would say even at 26, that's coming up, yeah, 3 years ago now. You wouldn't believe, like it's quite hard to communicate sometimes, just the transformation that can happen, but
yeah,
oh my god, I would not have it any other way.
yeah,
And of course, even in the spiritual journey, it's taking me to places where we don't want to go back to, like, we've done that, we've checked
yeah.
that experience, I'm not
Not
going to have another,
necessary. Yeah,
Michael. Let's stay away, get your sword out and protect me from that. I'll even get my own, but yeah, it is transformative, and I think that's what it's done for me and for others, is that that's what life is like. It's meant to change. It
mhm,
does change you.
yeah,
And I suppose maybe I've had a very unconventional life in many ways, and I guess just even with the stories today, they're not your everyday stories, but then that's what we're here for. We're here for magic, and it's just, I remember someone said to me, he was very much in the psychology sector and was very logical minded, and they were opening up and asking me about this, and they just said, I was expecting them to be like, all right, Rosie, I think we're going to make a trip now to the hospital. It was more like they literally sat there and they were like, what an amazing way to look at the world. And
yeah,
it's all about that perspective. And I think if it's available, why not look at the world in that way?
yeah,
Because even though you can go through the most horrendous, horrific things in your life, there may not be so much evidence in your physical human experience that shows that grace, that love, that transformation, that magic. But then you ask the angel, and I would be like, well, just wait, just see how it can change. And I think it's, again, they take you to this stage so they can show to you, look at the transformation, look at
yeah,
what your life is. And I think the more you open to it, the more they're like, great, because they won't come in. This is what we were saying yesterday in the angel circle. It's like they respect free will,
Yeah.
I do also say, you know, with spirit, if they're going to come in, they're going to come in. But particularly with angels, there is this respect about, you know, free will, and you know, because we are in charge of our destiny as well. We have that choice too. To an extent, it's all a collaboration. And so it's them when you ask for the help, then that's when they can come in, and that's the beauty of it. That's the
Yeah.
empowerment. You know, I feel spirituality, faith, angels, loved ones, all of that. This is all about empowerment and
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, for you, what an incredible empowerment to have Michael, protect her and giving you all this incredible strength and energy
Yeah.
to what isn't an easy path for
Mm-hmm.
anyone in life. But he's giving you the strength to carry it through,
Yeah.
which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, do you like working? Is there a difference between working remotely with people and being in like doing an in-person reading or whatever the connection in general? Does it make any difference?
Mm. So it's so funny, you know. I just think to some of the things on Cosmic Club or readings I've had with people online, I'm like, they're some of the best readings I've ever done.
Yeah.
You know.
I see Francesca sitting there like, Rosie's done it again,
Oh,
smashed it
no,
again.
it's just like, oh my gosh. There can be. I always trust and always know with spirit. I'm like, they don't know distance,
Yeah,
and you know sometimes and this can be for a whole plethora of reasons. This can be for so many different things. There can be that feeling of, does it work better? Is it, oh no, I think it might be better to do it in person. For me, I think it's all about preference and
yeah,
also accessibility.
yeah,
I find it really interesting. Someone's like, oh well, when I'm in person, no, it is better. But I think, do you know what? No, I think they will. If they are going to come through, they'll come through, and it doesn't matter what medium or what way they do it.
yeah,
It's there.
yeah,
Um, and for me, I think there's always a reason as to why it's either remote or online, or if it's in person.
yeah,
But yeah, they'll come through. They'll
yeah,
come through.
yeah. Gosh, we've been talking for so long, but I've got more questions. I wanted to, if you've got time, I wanted to ask you about your crystal healing
Yes.
and how, because I don't know anything about that side of what you do. I mean, I know
Yeah.
about crystals, but how
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
that start? And what is it that I mean, is it chakra balancing and that sort of stuff? Tell me about you and crystals.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely started from the psychic shop I was working in. I just was like, oh, crystals. And I remember when I was a lot younger, I had like, those like encyclopedia of gemstones, and I'd just be like this.
Yeah,
That I'm a Taurus. We're Taurus, but there's
yeah,
some nice things to look at.
yeah.
Everywhere.
Everywhere, everywhere there are crystals,
Yeah.
Rosie.
It's more, the more sparkles, the better. But yeah, I suppose my journey was, I had quite a lot of health issues whilst I was studying my course, and all of this was happening. All of the
Yeah,
mediumship was really taking off. I was really quite poorly, and there were a few medical reasons why. And then I went to this spiritual church, and then learned about healing, and just was almost again at a stage where I've got nothing to lose. Let me
yeah,
try.
yeah,
And I think I went from seeing, I saw went from seeing 5 consultants, and now I see 1 or 2.
yeah.
So
Amazing.
it's just that, like, that amazing shift that it brings. So what brought me to it was my personal experience as well. But I think just that, working with the angels and the crystals, of just I think it's people that I met as well. And I was like, this is a lovely thing, because quite often people I see that come for readings, how it works with the healing, I sometimes think, oh, it's lovely you've come for reading, and that's all aligned. But sometimes I think it might be really good actually to come for a healing, because it just reaches at another level, and messages still come through. So people will come for the healing. Yeah, it can be chakra balancing. There can be some physical things. So, some people say, well, there might be something in your hip, or there's something here that I came through, or that they're letting me know about this. It can be physical, it can be emotional, mental as well.
Yeah.
All of these different things. But, they work with me. Spirit will still come through even then in that healing, to then
Yeah.
say, oh, I've got these messages for you as well. Do you want to have them? So and I think for me, maybe coming from my psychology background as well, it's just this body and mind connection that I think is so important. And we might not know fully how it works, but isn't that in a way a beauty of it? In a way, I'm like, if it does help, if it does work, great. We almost don't always need to know how. So for me, because I see a lot of people, I work with my psychology, and I guess my life as well prepared me for this work wholeheartedly and fully.
Yeah.
There's not much I haven't seen, honestly. And it's like, and in that it prepares you for it, in that healing that it's needed, and it caters to it, because some people I see, it's some of what life has handed them. You need that sanctuary, you need that peace and that connection, and that's where spirit can come in and help.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. So we're going to wrap up in a minute,
Yeah.
but I wanted to ask you for what your three magical wishes would be as your fairy godmother over here.
Oh
I
my
can,
gosh, I
I can
didn't know
give
this
you
was happening.
three magical wishes, which they'll come true eventually. They won't come true right now, I don't think, but
Oh, that's okay. Well, we'll see. But like, just anything, or
anything, yeah. What would they be, Rosie?
gosh, I feel like I don't know. I needed to have a chat with the genie beforehand. I just think to actually a wish I have is that everyone can experience this magic, this way, and also to ask spirit to help use me and help me in every way in doing that. I
Yeah.
think that would be a big thing. That's how I feel I'm here.
Yeah.
It's my purpose. So just to kind of expand in that. Oh my gosh, Caroline, you really put me on the
Sorry,
spot. No, it's fine. I'm like, oh, what can I wish for? Not for me. Wow. I think, yeah, I would just, it would be lovely to just, I've always had this dream of kind of having some kind of show or platform that can, I guess it kind of goes with the first wish, but of just, you're creating it with the angels, and just seeing how you can have everyday people, but they have extraordinary stories, and that they're angels in themselves, and almost just like creating more of this conversation.
yeah.
I mean, I wish, if we were asking for magical stuff, I would love to go to Vegas. That's a wish I've got, in the States. Go to
Oh, yeah.
Graceland. Go to
You would love it.
Graceland.
Vegas is so wonderful. I love it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I guess just on a pure self part, maybe that would be nice as well to do. And if we're asking, you don't ask, don't get.
Yeah. Or maybe there's some connection with Vegas that I don't
Yeah.
know, you'll be doing something there. You don't know what it is yet, but you're
Maybe.
drawn to it for that reason. So
Maybe.
it's not, for you, it's for
Yeah, for
everybody.
others. And
Yeah.
I think this is for me when you're asking me like, what do you wish for? Is I'm like, I don't know, because I'm just much of my life and work is connecting with other people, and that
Mm.
just is a gift in itself. That for
Yeah.
me is like doing that. I just love it. Oh my gosh, I feel like I need an example of another wish. What else can I wish for?
I don't know. Have you got a wish for, people watching or
Oh, that's
uh
lovely. I think again, just to witness and understand the power and the transformation that the angels and spirit can bring, and that you experience that at some point in your life.
mm,
That
that's
would be a,
beautiful.
a wish
Yeah.
for people.
Yeah.
And I feel that's what my work is about, but for people to find that in themselves and in their own way.
Mm.
And to know that there's more out there.
Yeah.
Welcome this.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I just popped into my head when you were talking this TV show,
Oh yeah.
and I won't say which one, but I'm just wondering, is there a representation out there of angels that you find accurate? Whether it's TV, paint, and
That's so interesting. Yeah.
maybe just the energy, maybe it's not even like, I don't know, something about it that is resonates with you. So I don't know if you have any pictures, or there's a show that you like watching on TV, or there's a movie or something that you feel a strong connection with because you feel it's accurate. Or maybe there isn't. Maybe there's nothing that's accurate.
There's a film
Okay.
called A Walk to Remember,
Oh, I haven't seen it.
and it's based on a Nicholas Sparks novel. And I've not read this or seen this movie in probably 10 years. So it's just popped in now. I just opened up and like, what is it? It's about, if I remember correctly, it's about two teenagers that fall in love,
Hmm.
and the girl passes away. And there's a song in it called that Mandy Moore sings, and it's called Only Hope.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm going super shivery.
Uh-huh.
But it's like, for me, if anyone that's lost someone or anyone that kind of wants to connect, watch that movie or read that book, because it's just like she's depicted as just this pure soul, really, in the book, and you just warm to her and just who she is. And I think it makes this idea that angels are so much more accessible than we
Hmm.
think they are.
Yeah.
So,
I
like,
love
angels, of course, we've heard the stories today. They can be amazing. We have all
Yeah.
these Renaissance pictures. Wow. And
Yeah.
that in a way is the majesty and beauty of spirit as well. But I think what's needed, and this is what I would want to do with my work, is to see it's that magic of every day and that it's so accessible. And I think that film, A Walk to Remember, like depicts it so beautifully, of that connection of, yes, spirit and people passing, but also that angelic presence. So I
Yeah.
wholeheartedly recommend that
Oh,
film.
I'm
I feel
definitely
like I
going
want
to
to
watch
go
that.
watch it. It is
Yeah.
honestly, it's I do remember, like, for crying quite a lot
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
after. But
Well,
it's a really
yeah.
special book and film as well.
Yeah. But it also reminds me of the fact that, from what I've read and people that I've heard talk about it, and you just mentioned about this character is a pure-hearted character,
Yeah.
that being spiritually clean, keeping your house, not, I don't mean your house, I mean
Yes.
your,
Yeah.
the way you conduct yourself, being, being a nice person, being honest, being,
Yeah.
the way that you are in your heart is much more likely to allow space for spirit to come in. So keeping,
Open.
being aware of how you're projecting yourself in the world, and
Really.
yeah, being clean.
Yeah, and something that I feel that is always doing your best and always doing what you feel to be for the highest good.
Yeah,
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 that's a really lovely way that you've just put it. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Well, thank you. I think almost an hour and a half later, I should wrap it up. I'm not very good at
No,
the,
it's great.
the like half an hour that went out the window months ago. It's like,
Love it. There we
um,
go.
but thank you. You are, I think you are such a great advocate for what you do. I think the way you do it is and I overuse this word and I need to find a better word for it, but you're accessible to people. You don't you're not scary in a way, um that makes spirituality look kind of, I don't know,
Mhm.
adjectives that are
Yeah,
negative.
yeah.
put here. But yeah, there is something approachable, and you're, like I said, when I was introducing you, you're so warm, and you are like an angel on this
Oh,
earth. So I'm so grateful
that's so
for
nice.
I'm being here and doing what you do. So thank you. And thank you for your time. And please, if you're watching, listening, do look up Rosie. I recommend her. It's a very, an experience with Rosie is a very gentle, beautiful experience. So your readings are very warm, very full of heart, and yeah, I believe there are people for everyone. So there are psychics that you're attracted to because of their energy, and so I would personally, I would recommend Rosie. I
Oh,
think she's wonderful, and I know a lot of people out there feel the same way. And if you're vibing with the energy of this
oh,
podcast, then please do look her up. She's wonderful, and yeah, you will have a very special time talking with her. I can
oh,
guarantee it. So thank you for today, Rosie.
thank you. No,
Yes,
and just thank you for this space because it's
yeah,
so lovely to
you're
be
so
so
welcome.
accepted in this space. So thank
Yeah,
you.
well, you're
Pleasure.
so welcome, and thank you for being in the space. So.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.